There needs to be a complete overhaul of family law in Barbados and legislation focusing on the rights of children. That's according to Attorney General and Minister of Home Affairs Adriel Brathwaite. He was leading off the second reading of the Maintenance Amendment Bill 2014 in the lower house this morning. During debate, Mr. Brathwaite addressed the burning issue of maintenance orders not being enforced. He says a major problem court-martials face is incorrect information given by some mothers regarding their children's fathers. Mr. Brathwaite says in some instances they do not even know the real names of these men.
I'm told that sometimes that there's no knowledge in terms of where the individual actually works or his real address. So they're faced with the challenge. In fact, quite often or not, they're being asked to act as a private investigator because they're being asked to go and find this man without any real information. They're told to go onto the block at Deacons and you'll find him there and ask the fellows for him. So there's some real challenges in terms of how do they serve these orders quite often if they have incorrect information.
Mr. Brathwaite says with the free movement within CARICOM countries, some men are having children in Barbados and then leaving. He says enforcing child maintenance orders in other countries is something which must be examined.
Across the region. Now, I believe that there's a draft CARICOM Act. It's been around since I think 2011 or 2012 and stuff. I haven't done the research, unfortunately, and I really should have, in terms of how many countries across the region have done the legislation to ensure that maintenance orders are more easily enforced across the region. But with the free movement of individuals across the region.
St. Lucie Member of Parliament Housing Minister Dennis Kelman says maintenance should not be paid through the courts any longer. Mr. Kelman says based on recent delays and other flaws in the system, the money should be paid directly to the parent.
So that you wouldn't have this conflict and this delay or anything on this particular issue. And if you, in my opinion, if it is done that way, there's a possibility once the ruling is made by the magistrate in this particular case, because you're dealing with maintenance, you will get a situation where instead of having all this volatility and so on, that you might be able to correct some of the social problems that you are witnessing today and that you have witnessed over the years.
Opposition leader Mia Motley says the Debtors Act needs to be amended urgently. She says no father should be placed in prison for his inability to pay the court maintenance. Ms. Motley says because arrears have accumulated, it cannot be assumed that the father is willfully avoiding payment. She says in some cases they simply cannot pay or may be unemployed. She further stressed that the Constitution must offer protection to these individuals.
We have a practice where people are picked up for arrears and taken straight to Dodds, previously Glenderry, without any determination of their capacity to pay. Now I say, Madam Deputy, that if there's one thing we need to do is to be able to agree in principle, and I'm told that there's one or two magistrates who literally call in the people now, rather than letting the warrants be executed and the person goes straight to Dodds.
Ms. Motley says Barbadian men are also unaware that if their financial circumstances change, their maintenance arrangements can be altered.
Go back to the court that you've lost your job, that you are not working, and that you need an amendment, a variation, so that you do not become liable for debt that you cannot physically ever repay in this environment. And similarly, that you do not put yourself at risk for loss of liberty because of that debt.
Opposition Member of Parliament for St. Thomas, Cynthia Ford says some women have no choice but to go to court. She says because some fathers know they are in a desperate position, they're asked to do things to get the child's support.
How do you tell a mother who has 4 children, where 3 belong to one father and the 4th child is in a new relationship, that the only way you can get the maintenance for those 3 children is if you give me sex? The relationship is dead. It is dead. There's nothing there now. There's another child in the relationship. But in order to get the few dollars, it has to be a sexual encounter in order to get it. And that is so demeaning. And I say to those women, no sex, put them in court. Although I don't encourage women to go to court.
Teams from the Pan American Health Organization and the Caribbean Public Health Agency are expected in Barbados next week to assess the island's Ebola preparedness efforts. This from Chief Medical Officer Dr. Joyce John. She was speaking during one of the Health Ministry's Ebola preparedness education and simulation sessions last night.
On October 23rd, 2014, PAHO invited representatives of the Ministry of Health to participate in a teleconference during which the doctors who dealt with the Spanish case were discussing their experiences. And by the way, they will be part of a team that comes with PAHO and CARFA to be inspecting Barbados's level of preparedness next week. We're doing the testing of our port on Friday.
Well, several doctors and other medical personnel attended the training. It included sessions on identification, notification and isolation of suspected Ebola cases, as well as a demonstration on the correct way to put on and take off personal protective equipment. They were also advised by Dr. Karen Springer about setting up their offices with an isolation room to separate patients if there is a suspected case.
Staff should be trained on the signs and symptoms of Ebola, as well as the risk of exposure. Also on the identification of a suspected case. Staff should also be familiar with the procedure for the referral of a suspected case, and also as to the use of personal protective equipment. And as with every plan, you should evaluate the plan and update as required.
For the next 4 Fridays, starting today, Barbadian men can start the screening process for prostate cancer with a test that costs less than $40 Barbados dollars. Non-nationals will pay just over $45. It's all part of the November initiative to bring awareness to prostate cancer, which kills 100 men yearly in Barbados. In fact, Barbados has the 2nd highest incidence of prostate cancer per capita in the world and one of the highest mortality rates globally. Chief Executive Officer of the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, Dr. Dexter James, says the hospital's board agreed to slash the cost of the prostate-specific antigen test in order to encourage men to find out their levels.
A small sample of blood is taken and then sent to the laboratory for analysis. The level of PSA is then reported back to your physician, who can then analyze the results. So it's an initiative that we have launched to encourage men to come forward and have this PSA test done. We are encouraging all private physicians and providers of medical insurances to encourage the patients and policyholders to take advantage of this preferential rate. As we know, the old adage that prevention is better than cure is perhaps a very fitting metaphor in support of the early detection and treatment of prostate cancer when it is diagnosed early.
Dr. James says the hospital has also put systems in place to minimize the wait for the results of the test.
Blood samples will be taken at the phlebotomy unit at the hospital, which lies very close to the pharmacy area, every Friday for the rest of the month. It is a simple 3-step process. The first step is that one would make the payment at the cashier, and the reduced price is $35 for nationals and $45.50 for non-nationals. So once you've made your payments at the accounts department, you receive a receipt which you would take to the phlebotomy unit or the unit that will draw the blood. And the final step is that within 48 hours, we'll turn around the result and give to you to take back to your physician, who will then interpret the results for you.
Barbados is one of 12 countries which will benefit from the CARICOM Education for Employment program. This was disclosed by Minister of Labour, Social Security and Human Resource Development, Senator Dr. Esther Byers-Sakou. She was speaking at the opening of the 20th anniversary lecture of TVET Council Barbados, entitled Repositioning TVET as the Engine for Economic Growth. Senator Byers-Sakou said the Canadian $20 million project is aimed at transforming the region's TVET system from traditional and academic to one which is demand-driven and more responsive to the needs of society.
It will highlight the development of a skilled workforce with more gender-equitable participation among disadvantaged groups. The reintegration of youth and other at-risk groups into the workforce is critical to a successful economy and society. The long-term goal of the KEFI is to increase economic growth through a more competitive, productive, and gender-equitable workforce in the CARICOM region.
Well, more news ahead, but first we want to hear from you on this question. Do you believe Barbados should continue to imprison men who do not pay child maintenance? Text yes or no to the short code 8111. We'll share those results at the end of the news.
Hey Marjorie, you're in the supermarket early.
Girl, I here getting my ingredients for this gooseberry lamb story entering in the Best Bajan Cook competition at the 2014 Roberts NIFCA Culinary Arena and Expo in association with Caribbean Cuisine and Maxi Stores.
When days?
Oh, from Friday the 14th to Sunday the 16th of November at the Garfield Sorbers Gymnasium. $10 for adults and $2 for children. Listen, that fantastic arena gonna be bubbling with a mixture of the professional cook-off, the junior Julian chef, celebrity showcase, plenty food workshops, the Angostura bitters, mixology, showdown, plus a big able NIFCA Expo with all the local products you always wanted gonna be on sale, and performances from NIFCA award-winning acts.
Oh, lost Marjorie, my mouth watering. I can go and visit ncf.bb and get more details. You know, tell me the sales food comes from.
Yeah, like.
Let me tell you, that's some the gooseberry lamb stew from here.
Oh, well, then let's go.
This Christmas, Harris Paints is giving back. Yes! This Christmas, Harris Paints brings you the color of money. Play and win lots of prizes. Country prize draw for $1,000 US. Caribbean prize draws for $2,000 and $3,000 US. And the grand prize of $5,000 US. Go to a participating retailer or Harris store and pick up an entry form with your purchase today. Terms and conditions apply. See entry form for details.
A national procurement system is still on the cards for Barbados. That assurance from Attorney General and Minister of Home Affairs, Adriel Brathwaite.
The legislation will strengthen the public procurement legal framework, which will support the preparation of a public procurement policy, regulations, standard documentations, improve procurement operations and marketplace, including the establishment of the Procurement Policy Unit, a regulatory body, and institutional strength of key players in the public procurement arena, especially in the Central Purchasing Department, the Office of the Solicitor General, the Auditor General, Tenders and Special Tenders Committee, etc.
Barbadians withdrawing cash from automatic teller machines must avoid some practices which police say cause them to become targets for criminals. These include the counting of cash outside of the vestibule and using secluded ATMs. Crime Prevention Officer with the Royal Barbados Police Force, Station Sergeant Stephen Griffith, wants people to remain vigilant when conducting transactions at these teller machines. Station Sergeant Griffith also wants them to secure or destroy their ATM receipts.
The ATM receipts, people throw them all over the place, but that is not a good thing to do. Information can be had from those receipts. We don't know how much information is there, and that information can be used in the form of identity theft. So see that receipt, you should ensure that you keep it and destroy it appropriately. I see people that throw them all over the place, but that is not a good practice. Do not lend your ATM card to anyone at all. Do not give the number to anyone.
Station Sergeant Griffith also offered this advice to people using drive-through ATMs.
There are a few around the island, but we want you to ensure that you also pay attention to who is there when you arrive. Your car doors should be locked. The only window that should be down is that window close to where you're going to be doing the transaction. The car door should be locked. Your engine should be on. I saw where some person came to drive through and they switched off. It means that if they were attacked at the ATM, that they could not take evasive action by moving off and getting to a safe place. So please, you go to a drive-through ATM, have the doors secured, keep the engine on, complete your transaction, and move away as quickly as possible.
The Barbados Road Safety Association wants the public to take extreme caution while driving on the road. The plea comes as the association held a memorial for Caroline Stewart, a former MTW worker hit and killed by a car a year ago while she was cleaning a section of Highway 2A. Members of the association, accompanied by some relatives of Ms. Stewart, gathered along the area of Blowers Road, St. James, near the junction with Plumtree Road, where that accident happened, to erect a cross in her memory. Ms. Stewart's son, Courtney Corbin, says the memorial brings back memories.
Because they were the first person on the scene, first member on the scene, family member on the scene, and everything came rushing right back. And but the good thing about it, when they got him, his sort of family, it felt good to see that I had the support here again. Let me just thank you all for coming out. I think initially when I thought about the idea, we didn't too sure what to do. But when we contacted Charlemagne, she gave us the idea about coming here today, which I think was great.
Well, the initiative is part of activities organized by the association to mark Road Safety Month. President Charmaine Roland Bowen stressed the importance of keeping road fatalities to a minimum.
Injure yourself. So please, we're asking them to slow down. And we have the festive season coming in. So far for the year, we have had 13 road fatalities, and we would not like to take it to any more. Last year we had 18, and we are trying with the effort of traveling public drivers and so on. We can keep that down to below 18. We don't want it to go there this year. We really would like to keep it below.
Families affected by a fire that broke out in the South District area a few weeks ago are receiving help. Project Officer at the Urban Development Commission, Sean Fields, says the agency is pleased to be building a house that will be structurally sound.
We need also to look at what is here, because there are some things in terms of the foundation, for example, that may still be intact, albeit that we had a fire. So it's about saving money and keeping the cost down as much as possible. So where we can, we will. We can bring our drawing team to look at the existing structure and then look to create a design to accommodate all of the occupants. So essentially that's what we will be doing. Do a very facilitative role and using our technical expertise, our specifications, in order to make sure that it's done properly.
Well, DLP candidate for St. Michael Southeast, Patrick Tannis, is asking the public to offer assistance. Mr. Tannis was present as South District falls under the St. Michael Southeast constituency.
We want to commence with immediate effect the restoration of this home, and our hearts go out to the family here who has been affected, not of their own volition, I understand, but this family has been unfortunately targeted by fate, if that's how you want to call it. But we as brothers and sisters of this family and fellow Barbadians, we encourage you to come out and be a part of this process.
Insurance companies in Barbados are being told to see reconstructive breast surgery as more than a cosmetic procedure. And chairperson of the breast screening program, Dr. Shirley Jagru, says she'll be lobbying for this to happen. She says patients should not be worried about the costs associated with such a procedure.
What most women are terrified of is waking up after surgery to find either part or her entire breast absent. This can be a devastating experience. Having spoken to survivors, this is the worst nightmare of their life.
Dr. Jagru was speaking during the presentation ceremony for this year's CIBC First Caribbean Walk for the Cure event at the Hilton, Barbados. Director of Corporate Communications, Deborah King, says this year the event raised just over $77,000 to help in the fight against breast cancer. Ms. King says persons living with cancer need all the support that they can get, and she's pleased at the company's continued commitment to increasing fundraising and its contribution.
We see this as part of our corporate social responsibility. As a responsible corporate citizen, we have always been at the forefront of providing assistance to the communities in which we operate. For us, it is about more than handing over a check. It is about becoming involved in our communities and responding where and how we can. It is about making a real difference in the lives where it matters most.
Hundreds of Barbadians paid their last respects to economist Tennyson Beckles, who passed away at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital last week. The Thanksgiving service was held at the Church of St. John the Baptist in St. James, where Mr. Beckles worshipped. Eulogist Sir Lloyd Sandiford said he was left numb, in deep distress and saddened on hearing of Mr. Beckles' passing. Sir Lloyd spoke glowingly of the man who he described as a close and dear friend.
The former Prime Minister told assembled family, friends, cabinet members and colleagues of the late Tennyson Beckles that he had expectations of a greater Barbados and made his contribution accordingly. Sir Lloyd said while he and the late economist grew up together in the Western Port of St. James district, their lives took different paths. He says while he was fortunate to get a scholarship to go to public school at the Courage, later the Courage and Parry School and Harrison College, Mr. Beckles was not so lucky. He says at the time both men lived in an unequal society and his friend was forced to migrate because there were no open doors of opportunity for him and others like him.
I wish to stress this term inequality, because unless we set our goals on strengthening social and other equalities in this country, we will not go forward, but we will regress.
So Lloyd appealed to the congregation not to let the life of the late Mr. Beckles pass in vain, instead paying everlasting tribute to the good that he has done.
Tennyson Chesterfield is leaving us. Let us not fail to draw valuable insights from his living.
Tennyson Beckles was one of Barbados' leading economists, an industrial relations specialist, faithful member of the church, and an unswerving supporter of the Democratic Labour Party. He was 76 years old. Dale Ford for CBC News.
Regional news is next, but first a reminder that we'd like